Welcome to No Direction, the Pathfinder News, Reviews, and Interviews podcast. I'm Ryan Costello.
And I'm Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Perram.
This is the News, Reviews, and Interviews podcast, although interviews is not, it may be what gets the most people coming to any individual episode, but it's not something we do every episode. Sometimes Perram and I just we just like to banter. We just like to talk about what's on our minds and how our games are going, and that's what this episode's going to be. Episode 103, Perram and I just talking about stuff.
We're going to give it a better title than that, right?
Perram and I yammering on and on about stuff.
Better.
All right. Perram and I hitting topics like they're targets on an archery board.
No.
Okay, fine.
Too long. It won't fit.
Okay.
It won't fit in the YouTube comment.
Well, we'll figure something out. But for now, how are you doing, Perram?
I'm doing great.
That's good.
The weather has kept me from gaming because players can't make it to my house because there's a river there, or then there's 2 feet of snow. Actually, flip that in reverse. But that has been my bane lately, is that Mother Nature evidently dislikes role-playing games. I'm starting to believe all the stuff in those chick tracks. But besides the fact that I haven't got to play Pathfinder in a month and grumbling about it, everything is cool.
That's good. I see you're back in your cabin, your game. Shoot, what do you call it?
It's the tavern.
The tavern. There you go. You're back in the tavern because I know you were flooded.
We got flooded. First, we got snowed. We got literally 2 feet of snow, and that might not sound much to a Canadian, but when your hills look like roller coasters, that's a bad thing. Mm-hmm. Especially since we don't usually get that, and our cars are not equipped to handle it. And then when all that snow melted, it made the river flood. And so for the week after the weeks of snow, the river literally washed out the road. It was my down ramp would down ramp into river, and that means I was still stuck in the house. So I got basically 2 weeks stuck in the house. Literally could not leave the house physically. Then we got 2 days that we could actually go out and resupply, to come back to get stuck in the house for another 5 days.
Yeah.
And of course that meant that my players could not get to me. I could not get to them. So no gameplay.
I know that a lot of Canadians or a lot of people in snowy regions will look at people in non-snowy regions, and when you get freak snowstorms, they're like, "Oh, those! How can they not deal with 2 feet of snow?" But that's not really appreciating just how many snowplows we have, how much of our infrastructure is based around regularly removing snow. There is no point for Kentucky to have a fleet of snowplows available to them.
Right. And there's a great article that was written last year about when Atlanta got that freak snowstorm and how it completely shut the city down for 2 weeks, the whole city. And a lot of people were making fun of them the same way. It's how can 6 inches of snow shut a city down? Well, when you have zero infrastructure to deal with the eventuality of 6 inches of snow on your roads, it's a huge problem.
Let me put it to you this way. How many shovels did you own before this snowstorm? Shovels that are equipped to plow the driveway.
One.
One? Okay. Well, that's one. Actually one more than I thought you might say. I own 3 different kinds of shovels. And it's just, we get enough snow and enough variety.
Not like Florida, where we get one. Most of the time the shovel is used for other things, but we do have this eventuality. Now, it is now beat the heck, and so it does not do the shoveling all that great.
So let's put this in a little Pathfinder context. If you were running a campaign set in Kentucky,
yes, okay.
If your character was equipped with winter gear, with a shovel, with all of that kind of stuff, that would be a waste of resources. Your character's only got certain wealth per level.
Right.
Buying all of that anti-snow gear would be foolish.
Exactly.
And if somebody did come equipped with that stuff, and then the first adventure is about a freak snowstorm, the GM would call shenanigans.
Exactly. I mean, you should come here equipped with hiking boots and camouflage.
Exactly.
That's the stuff you want here. Also, bear repellent.
If you're playing in Montreal and you don't have at least something to deal with the half of the year that we've got snow, then you're foolish. You're underprepared. Pathfinder.
Yes.
Perram, do you want to talk about some news or some bantery stuff?
News, because there's some fun news.
There is. Now, before we get to that, Perram and I aren't the only ones that banter in these episodes. If you are watching us live, and we encourage you to do that, go to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/NoDirectionShow, and you can watch live, like 11 people are doing right now. Hi, guys. And you can chat with us in the comment section. Just post comments as though you were chatting with us, and as the episodes go on, we'll try and catch them while we're still on a topic. And it's a very interactive, very fun thing. It brings you into the show, and it lets us add more voices. It's more than just Perram and I who have very agreeable positions towards each other. It gives other things, other points of view.
Am I supposed to start disagreeing with you more often then?
Yeah, it's not really our format.
No, it's not.
RPG Superstar 2015 Final Four announced, Perram.
Yes! Now, most of you will have recognized many of the names, or all the names? No, we didn't have Caliruvo. I can't pronounce that.
Yeah, so we had 3 of them on the No Direction RPG Superstar 2015 special last episode, episode 102.
Right.
Which is still available on YouTube.
Yes.
And then one of the final 4, Carlevo, did not make the live recording, but did provide a blog post reply to all of our questions. And so, yeah, you can go to NoDirectionPodcast.com, and you can look for the link to the RPG Superstar special, or you can actually click on the RPG Superstar tag in our tag cloud, because RPG Superstar is actually one of our biggest tags, because we've been covering it for years now, and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger.
Like lots and lots of RPG Superstar.
But the final 4, Brian J. Fruzen, who this is his second year making it to the top. He made it to the top 16 last year. He's in the top 4 this year. So congratulations. He's clearly someone that has a versatile skill set, because he's able to constantly meet up these challenges, deal with all of the twists. You've got Monica Marlowe, who admitted that she had never seen a monster stat block before entering RPG Superstar, and now she's in a Final 4, which I think just speaks very well to her creativity and just her instincts for the game. You have Carlevo, who I don't have the same memory for his written answers as I do for the other 3 people, so I kind of feel bad that I was giving details about the other 2 and did not think about it. So let me quickly look up Carlevo. How did he approach this? Usually starts by bouncing around ideas. All right, this is not working. I'm sorry, Carlevo. I don't have a proper way to summarize.
You get to be the man of mystery this year.
Ooh, nice. And Christopher Wasco, who I believe was also in the top 16 last year. This is his second time getting past the elimination, getting into the Final 4. So we've got a nice chunk of of contestants, any one of which I think we can all agree are strongly qualified to be the RPG Superstar of 2015. And any day now we're going to see their round 5 submissions, and we'll get to read over more free content and decide who we think is best qualified to be the RPG Superstar of 2015.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this one. It should be fun, especially. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, especially because of I lost that thought.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, once their pitches are approved, they create a full adventure proposal up to 3,000 words to be judged and voted on. So it's not just that they write a proposal and then we vote on it. There is a bit of a vexing phase. There's a gatekeeper. James Jacobs still has to say, like, I like this idea enough to let you pitch it. And I don't know if that's always how the last round has worked. I have a feeling it didn't work like that a couple of years ago. I know when Clinton Boomer was in the Final 4, one of the issues was that people felt he'd pitched an adventure path, and that there was no way that this giant epic that he had pitched could fit into a 32-page adventure module. So, in any case, it's a 32 to 40-page adventure for 5th-level characters set in Narvoth, which is in not the Underdark, the Darklands. So once again, congratulations to the Final Four. Congratulations really to anyone that made the top 32, because every year RPG Superstar is getting more and more competitive, and so just getting shortlisted to the top 32 means something. It is a significant achievement, and anyone that is interested in getting more freelance work and possibly making a career out of game design, putting RPG Superstar any round onto their resume, it's a big deal.
Yeah. And they're doing something interesting this year. The runners-up are going to get to write a Pathfinder Society scenario.
All three of them, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think a couple of years ago they did this, but it was 2 out of the 3 got to write the scenario, and one of them just kind of didn't. That's kind of a bummer for that one.
Yeah. But honestly, I think that's cheating on Pazzo's part, because, oh, look, we got the cool adventure module, and look, now we got more RPG modules we didn't have to write. Though, anything that gets us more society modules. And by this time, these guys have already proven their chops.
Mm-hmm. Now, I mentioned a minute ago people having a career in gaming. It happens. And in fact, Paizo just did a string of hiring. It seems they invented a new position and filled it up pretty quickly. The assistant developer. We know 2 new assistant developers that have just joined the Paizo team. One of them is Crystal Fraser. Now, Crystal Fraser should be a very familiar name to the listeners, to Pathfinder enthusiasts, because she does cartography, she writes adventures, and for a while she was a full-time Paizo staff member. But her position was always kind of nebulous. She was like some kind of digital specialist. And I remember the first time we had her on the podcast, our first string of questions were all about digital material, and that's when we realized that digital specialist didn't mean what we thought it meant. And there was this moment of panic. I remember it. I don't know if you shared it, Perram, but it was just like, we prepared a certain type of interview, and that is not the interview that we can get out of Crystal, so what are we going to do? And then luckily she brought up Ninja Turtles, and for the next 15 minutes, that was the topic.
Yes, and we really hated that. We do not get caught off guard all that often, because usually we've talked with, read about, or know at least decently what everybody at Paizo does, and we're familiar with our proverbial pants down. Was not a fun experience, but I'm definitely glad she's back on the team, because she was a great personality. She was obviously good at what she did. Her photography, a good character artist. I like a lot of the stuff she posts on her personal galleries and stuff like that. Though I don't know if she'll be doing any of that for Paizo. But definitely glad to have her on board.
Yeah, Crystal, I think one of the reasons that interview, we recovered it and ended up being a favorite of mine, is that Crystal kind of can do anything. She is just talented, to be published quality artist, to get cartography published. That is a rare skill. And to have as much writing credit as she has. She's written in the last 2 adventure paths, or at least 2 out of the last 3 adventure paths. She did part 1 for one of them, Mummy's Mask, and then she did part 6 for Iron Gods. So she's ridiculously talented. And assistant developer, we don't entirely know what the position means, but I have a feeling it's a bit more of a flexible position than a regular developer, or just a developer, no adjective. And that seems like a perfect position for Crystal to have.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but the developers are the rules guys?
No, those are the designers.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Developers are the flavor guys. They're the ones working on the Pathfinder world. And of course, they do design Crunch, but they don't work on the hardcovers unless they're brought into it, like John Compton worked on the strategy guide.
Okay. So, yes. Now, she's not the only assistant developer. We are also going to get Linda Zayas Palmer as the others. And
she was the Adventure Lieutenant of Boston, along with Mark Seifter, who was recently added to the design team. They may be a couple.
Raiding Boston. They're raiding Boston.
I know. Poor Anthony. He's losing all of his Pathfinder Society venture officers. That's Anthony Lee, of course, who writes the Behind the GM Screen blog for the No Direction website, and who is on the Private Sanctuary podcast. So, yeah, Linda has a lot of experience with Pathfinder Society, and I know her. I don't know her as well as Crystal, but I didn't realize that she had developer chops. So I'm going to be interested to see what she works on and see her names in the credits and see what she's bringing to the game.
But they're also looking for one more position.
Yes. So this one is also a bit of a nebulous position. It is
which is
the production designer. So it sounds like it's someone that's going to be doing mostly layout. They're kind of doing the art department grunt work. There's a lot of the job. There we go. The specific job skills involve good production design skills, attention to detail, knowledge of things, building own files for press and online, good organization skills. So this is a job that they haven't hired for yet. And it seems like if you are a person that just has a good sense of style and you're a hard worker, this is a job that you should be looking at. So it's still posted on the Paizo job opportunities, which, if you don't know, if you go to Paizo.com, on the left-hand side, there's what I believe may be an often ignored menu that has some really useful links. The About Paizo section is one that I click on quite often when I'm preparing for an episode. It's got the product catalog and upcoming schedule. It's got the Contact Us, which lists the emails of all the Paizo employees and their position, which I like that, getting that detail right, making sure I'm crediting everyone with their proper position. So it's got all of their job titles. And then one of them is job opportunities. And so periodically you can check on it, and there are jobs posted there. Some of them are just warehouse labor, but some of them, actually, and I shouldn't act like that's not an exciting position, but there's a lot of different ways that you could get in on Paizo if you are either in the area or willing to move to it and you think you're qualified. I think that's it for the news, Perram.
Yep, not as huge of a news week as last time.
No, I guess there's only 2 news items, but I mean, it's still fairly significant.
Good news. I
Yes.
like good news. More Paizo people is good news. And RPG Superstar is always good news. But we can count on RPG Superstar every week.
Now, I'm just going to the comment section. Francis LeBoeuf says, you guys interview each other.
Oh.
It's an interesting suggestion. I don't have an interview prepared for you, Perram, although that could kind of be a fun experiment the next time we don't have a guest lined up.
That would be very weird. I mean, recursive podcasting.
Well, we wouldn't be talking about the podcast. I guess it would kind of be like most of our conversations, but it would start at the roots, because at this point it's 103 episodes. We've mostly done them together, and there may be some things that we are assuming people know about us that they don't. It might be a good opportunity to refresh things. In fact, there we go. If we ever do another episode 0, maybe it can start with us interviewing one another.
Yes, because also it's kind of a silly thing for us to think that people have listened to 103 of our episodes.
Some people have.
Oh, most of them. All right.
Our first banter
on to
topic.
talking about. Oh yes.
Sorry.
We have a significant audio delay right now.
Do we?
Yeah, I'm thinking multiple seconds.
When I say make some, you say noise. Make some.
Noise.
So that seems pretty quick. But you are stalling often for me. But then, like, it's silence and then, like, sped up speech. So I think you do catch up.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I guess we'll let people know if there's any awkward pauses between us. It's because we're not quite. It's not the smoothest connection right now.
Yeah, we're having issues. It appears that YouTube as a whole is also having issues. We are not alone. All right. I often talk about my Pathfinder collection because I come from a collecting background. And collecting Pathfinder and other RPG materials is not what you usually hear from most collectors. Now, what about you, Ryan? Do you do much collecting?
I collect Pathfinder in the same way I collect most things. I'm not a completist for almost anything. Actually, unless there's numbers on it, I don't care to be a completist.
There's
So,
numbers on all this stuff.
Okay, well, unless it's sequential, like if it says 1 of 6, I can't live with having 5 out of 6. I need the 6 of them. And like if I get into a collectible card game, even if I don't need the whole collection because I'll have my whatever faction or what have you, but if there's numbers, then suddenly I at least need 1 of every card. I don't need 4 of every card, like, or whatever the limit of having in your single deck. I don't go that far, but I like to have 1 of every card.
Yeah, I can't do that with card games because the cards get expensive fast.
When it comes to Pathfinder, for the most part, I am a practical collector. So I've got 1 of every hardcover that's come out. I recently picked up the Monster Codex. That was the one gap in my collection. But that's a combination of we use it for the podcast, or we might use it in my home game. And the only book right now that I own that I don't think I've ever used in my home game in any capacity is Mythic Adventures. And that's a specific subsystem. But for the most part, like, even if we didn't have the podcast and I wasn't reviewing it and I didn't want to stay current with Mythic stuff and all of the releases, I feel like at some point I would still end up with that hardcover book. I'm thinking you're on a delay.
Because it would feel like a gap if you didn't have it?
Yeah, exactly. Now, here's something that came up because I'm running Rise of the Moon Lords.
Mm-hmm. It's
Sorry.
a great book.
I don't know what you just said. I didn't hear any of it.
I cut off when you started talking again, so there
Okay.
wasn't much. Guys, we're really sorry about this.
I'm worried about this episode, Perram.
Yeah, I'm also very worried about it. We usually don't have this bad of a situation.
Yeah. We'll power through the banter, and if it doesn't clear up, then we'll have to cancel or postpone the reviews and the note questions.
Yeah, sorry guys. I'm definitely vote for rescheduling rather than releasing another short episode.
Okay, so let's see if we can get through this topic.
Mm-hmm.
And then if we can, we'll get to the next topic. And if we can get through the 3 banter topics, then we'll talk about moving on.
Okay.
And if not, if it really just becomes inconvenient, then we'll cut the whole episode short.
Okay. Let's do a lag test right now because we're still in things that I'm definitely going to be cutting from the audio.
Yeah. When I say make some, you say noise. Make some.
Noise.
Make some.
Noise.
Yeah, there was no lag there.
Okay, let's do it in reverse. When I say make some, you say noise. Make some.
Noise.
Make some.
Noise.
Okay, let's not trust our videos.
Oh, okay.
We used to do this completely audio. We can do it again.
Avenka Thalma in chat says he's listened to every episode twice.
Whoa! Twice? Yeah. We're not that interesting.
Well, we're useful. So, I was talking about collecting Pathfinder. So, I'm running Rise of the Rune Lords.
Right.
And I've got 2 different copies of the Anniversary Edition. One of them was loaned to me by Jeff, one of my players, who started running it, and then his campaign died out. So he had this book, he wasn't using it.
Mm-hmm.
He offered to lend it to me, and I asked him, is it okay if I highlight some things? Because from my Pathfinder Society experience, which is the only canned adventures I'd been running, I'd gotten used to printing out and then highlighting the important details that I needed. And Jeff was really hesitant to say okay. He expressed some concern because he was basically giving me the book. He would only take it back if he ever thought that there would be another chance that he runs it again. But yeah, he wasn't really comfortable with me highlighting in it, even though he eventually did say yes. And I think it was a combination of Jeff's hesitation and my own hesitation. I have not highlighted anything in the book. I have not dog-eared a page. It is still in great condition. Now I'm also using the Super Fancy Anniversary Edition. And the reason that so I've got the Super Fancy Anniversary Edition. It should be the one that it's like, this is everything you need to run the ultimate Rise of the Rune Lords experience, but I'm mostly running out of Jeff's copy of the book because I don't want something bad to happen to my Super Fancy Edition. I only ever open it, take out any of the handouts that are handedly like enveloped onto the pages, give it to my players, take it back, slide it in, put it back on the shelf, go back to Jeff's regular anniversary edition. And one step further, one of the inserts in one of the books, it's actually 3 separate small inserts, and it says use one of these 3, give one of the 3 of them, but they're all printed together. And I was looking at it and I was like, oh, do I fold this so that they don't see the other 2? Do I cut it into 3 pieces? Which would be the ultimate, like, it would be the optimum use of this handout, where they would only be getting the one thing, and they wouldn't know that there were 2 other possibilities and some path led them to being this one of those 3. Or do I just hand them the whole thing and say ignore the other 2? Which is ultimately what I did, because I could not bring myself to cut the anniversary edition handout into the proper, like the contextually appropriate size. And even though I don't have any intention to resell this book, and if I do, usually when I resell collectibles, I resell them cheap, because if I don't want it on my shelf, I just want to get it out, and I don't have any concern about not getting its proper value. Nope, this is a book that will just be mine. It's for me. It's on the shelf, but I can't do it, Perram. Just knowing that this thing has a value, and I would be hurting that value in some way by cutting it and making it more like utility valuable.
I'm so proud of you. Finally taking the final step into actually collecting this stuff. No, I mean, when you mentioned the possibility of ripping up that handout, I went, no! Oh, God, no. But I understand the personal dilemma here, and I have my own methods for solving all of the problems you just mentioned. But for me, it's not about the resale value at all. The resale value is just a score I use to understand, how just to objectively gather how rare something is, because I don't ever resell my collectibles. It's keeping it in pristine condition is so that I have something in pristine condition. Having it as good as care what some other owner is going to think of it, because there's not going to be some and so it's not unusual that you wanted to keep it in good shape, because every collector I know of, I mean, I used to run a comic book shop. I meet a lot of collectors. They have the similar attitude where when you ask them, are you ever going to sell that? Like, no, I'm never going to get rid of this. And this is so, why are you so careful with it? Because it's not about the value. It's about them having something perfect, and every time it's damaged, it means that I might not be able to repair this. I might not be able to replace this, especially with something that is actually rare. A loss of them is felt through the whole collecting community, because that means there's one less of this. Like when a one of 100 Ghost Rider statue gets shattered, that means that there is one less of those possible to own for somebody looking to get one. That makes values go up, so some people are happy, but also that means that it's harder to get the object. Now, to address your specific concerns on how I handled the same thing, because I ran the same adventure with the same products that you were talking about. I bought the Uber Collector Edition, of course, and it got looked at, examined, and shelved. It's like, oh, this is sweet. This is really cool. I'm glad I own this. Nobody shall ever touch this, because first, it's actually incredibly fragile. It is really fragile. The clasp, that big cool metal clasp on it, It turns out there was a production problem with them, and half of them broke.
Oh.
Oh yeah. To the point that they for a while there, they had like articles on their website on, contact us if yours is broke. This is how we can send you a repair kit, or we can swap it for you. You get the idea. So that never gets touched. But I do have the normal version of the Anniversary Collection, and before that, I was running this out of original print runs of 1 through 6, and at the time, those were very rare and very valuable. They still have some value, not the value they had before the collection came out. But when you have when you're running burnt offerings and it has an eBay price of wrinkle the pages. So what I do with all my books, doesn't matter if they're rare, is I don't highlight the original material like that. In sections, I get those little clear sticky tab things, like the post-it notes that don't leave a residue when they're removed, and I put those little arrows where the important part is, because then those can get taken off when I'm done with that section. But more commonly, I'll just get several bookmarks and put them in the pages, and they're often custom-made bookmarks, and by that I just mean homemade cuts of cardboard, or more specifically poster board. And if I need to know a specific section, I'll put the bookmark in place, and then I'll write on the bookmark, pointing at the line that's important, in a little hand note, his name is here, point, so that the only thing that gets written on is the thing I put there, and then all that gets taken out when it goes back into the collection. As far as the handouts, that's why I like getting the PDFs, so that I can just print out the handouts that are necessary, cut those up, and hand them out. Now, with having the cool handouts from the collector's edition, that's a corner case. So in your situations, I would still use those cool handouts, except I didn't. But since you want to and they're cool, I would still use those handouts. But in the case, that one specific case, that would be a case that even if I was wanting to use the cool handouts, when it came down to compromising the game, I would be like, nope! And either go get the PDF page and print it out. Usually the handouts are available as printouts, period, on a lot of the material that you can just download separately.
Yeah, I want those handouts.
Yeah, well, not to the point that you cut one.
Yeah, no.
And, or... if it's a really difficult thing, and there's some cases where the handouts themselves aren't sufficient. There's a few modules that have like puzzles and stuff where the handout, even that's not good enough. So then I just turn to Photoshop and quickly create something to approximate the handout, and that gets distributed.
Now, something else that's in the Fancy Anniversary Edition are the photo quality prints of the covers.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can picture a Pathfinder Adventure Path cover, there's usually a figure, a head-to-toe figure painted, and in the original ones it was the Iconics, and then in the background there's a battle scene and just kind of this strip along the middle. That strip has been recreated without anything blocking it, and it's one of the only times you can get that art in just like pure unblocked. So I have those, and I like setting the scene. So I've got a corkboard behind me, and I pin them to the corkboard, but I push the pins flat into the corkboard. I don't actually puncture the picture, and I use the flat head of the pin to hold it in place. Whereas I've got posters, I've got promotional posters, I've got map folios that I will punch holes in, no problem, all over my basement. But those specifically, again, I just like, nope, I can't do it to these. They're too special.
Yeah, I completely support that, to the point that I won't even use those for that purpose. I printed out all the Rune Lords and all the important characters, and then when the face cards finally came out, those became a godsend for running the games. But even then, I have to be careful with my face cards. Like one of the proposed solutions for using the face cards was to put them into the miniature bases that come with the pawns. But then I found out that wrinkles the bottom of the card, and so that became a non-option.
It might also peel the pawn. You have to be careful with both.
Oh yeah, I've damaged a few pawns, and in that case I cringe. But I remember what those are supposed to be, and that is cheap alternatives to expensive miniatures. So I just call that damage in the line of duty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's rare to have a pawn that doesn't have the teeth marks in the bottom of the base.
Yeah. It just means you didn't use it yet.
Yeah.
So
go ahead.
So have you made the final step, and like the really good collectible stuff gets put in protective material?
I have not, but that was actually going to be part of what I was saying next. There's a different kind of collectible, and that is just like the ultimate rare stuff. So I've got a first edition of the core rulebook, which sold out really quickly when it first came out. So most people have a second printing. People that have been playing Pathfinder since the beginning probably have a second printing of the core rulebook. I've got my name written on, like, in ink along the spine of it, or not the spine, but the face where the sheets are. It says RCJR. I did that before I really thought about what kind of value it would have, but I don't seem to mind. But I do like the trivia that I have a first edition, and I can tell people the story. It's like, oh, this is actually kind of a rare piece. There's no difference between first and second edition other than the fact that it's first and second edition, but here's why there was a second edition that came out so soon after, and I can go into a little bit of a history of the game. It's the same reason I like having the bonus bestiary. I got it on free RPG day, so it cost me nothing. And for a while I actually lost it, and I don't know how I lost a book, but eventually I found it again, and I've kept better track of it. But I like it because it's a cool bit of trivia that the bonus bestiary is the first Pathfinder RPG product. There's been other Pathfinder products, but as far as the Pathfinder rules, the first monster stat block to have the CMB and CMD printed on it was in the bestiary, the bonus bestiary. It came out before the core rulebook. And I like that. I like having a piece that I could say, this is rare, and this is interesting because.
Exactly. Have a story behind them. I mean, there's a reason that this one thing became ultra valuable, ultra hard. I mean, I guess there's two. I guess there's two things that are ultimate collectibles as far as I consider for Pathfinder, and one of them I don't have because it's almost impossible to get. Yes, go ahead and guess.
Core rulebook with the gold foil edges?
Yes, I do not have a gold core rulebook yet. I have attempted to acquire one on several occasions, but at this point it's becoming increasingly unlikely because they're getting into the thousands of dollars in sale price. Maybe as Pathfinder's popularity declines, this will become easier, which is something I don't. So I kind of hope I never get one, because that means that Pathfinder is no longer popular, because the only other way that this would become an affordable piece. And the other one that is becoming mythical in its ability to acquire. I bet you know this one too.
I forget the name of it, but it was the first free RPG day item. Yeah. Like, it predates the RPG.
Yeah, Hollow's Last Hope.
There you go.
And I didn't get that when it came out. I had to acquire it through collector's means, and in fact, one of the members of chat had provided it for me. Actually, I bought it off of them for what was considered a good price at the time, a fair price, but a good price at the time. That book, again, is because it's the very first thing. Well, there are two things that are technically, you can have this argument. It's the very first thing that is Pathfinder, because it came out right before Rise of the Rune Lords, and the game mastery stuff came out. The other thing you can say that's technically Pathfinder are the game mastery encounter packs, if you remember these guys. So yeah, one of those is technically the first Pathfinder, and it's kind of hard. You need to decide whether or not those count as technically Pathfinder, those first encounter packs, though I have all of both.
So I think they would only be considered the first Pathfinder because there's references to some of Galarian, and I believe one of them features art of Seone, but she's in a blue dress with quite blonder hair.
Yeah, and one of them has Tarbafon in it. Important.
Yep.
Though in there he's only a.
It's not my place as a Pathfinder historian to judge which one came first, but I know, like, each one of them has its collectible significance. Like, even if you don't agree that Hollow's Last Hope is the first Pathfinder object, first Pathfinder published material, it's the first time that a Pathfinder logo showed up on something.
I don't even think it has the Pathfinder logo.
Oh, really?
No, it was Game Mastery branded.
Oh, Hollow's Last Hope?
Yeah,
Huh.
because they were still Game Mastery adventures back then. Because Pathfinder was the name of the Not magazine. Because at the time they were even saying that this we didn't even know what Pathfinder was yet. It was because Pathfinder wasn't a thing. Pathfinder was the title of this not quite a magazine thing they were producing. That was kind of a magazine, kind of a adventure, because the published Adventure Path thing was still a new concept back then. And then Game Mastery Adventures were standalone adventures. Now they both took place in Galarian, but Game Mastery Adventures weren't branded Pathfinder Adventures until after Pathfinder launched, and actually it was several issues in before they made that switch.
Now, remind me that I've got another point about collectibles I want to bring up, but I want to go into chat because we've had some interesting comments.
Okay.
Darren Kaldemeyer has just been hemorrhaging great comments. So, first of all, he says, speaking of collections, 3 more years until a 10th anniversary product. I don't think today's the day to talk about it, but we could speculate in the near future about what they might do as a 10th anniversary.
Oh.
He says that when running an adventure path, he prints a copy from the PDF and conducts a bloodbath of highlighting glory. First of all, Darren, amazing. But second of all, a completely valid option. I actually don't own a PDF of Rise of the Rune Lords, but if I do, that's actually would be a solution to my problem. I could just print out all of the pages that are relevant to the story and organize them in a way that the spine of a book won't let me. I have not gone that route, and I can't say why I haven't. I may consider it if I find I'm getting overwhelmed with all the flipping back and forth of pages. Now, I'm going to skip that one, and just Darren Kaldemeyer says, frowny face, no more face cards from Paizo. Perram, do you know anything about this?
I did not see that announcement. No, I did. I don't. I did not see that.
Yeah, didn't they just release the Pathfinder Society face cards?
And Wrath of the Righteous got them. I don't know if Iron Gods got their face card sets. I have not seen anything about that. Darren, if you've got a link or something to that announcement or something talking about that, we'd greatly appreciate it. I mean, a change in product format doesn't surprise me if this was a low seller, but man, it was such a great product.
Yeah, it took me a long time to adapt it, but once I tried, I quickly adapted it versus, say, the item cards, which I said I've tried on numerous occasions and just never found they jived with my style of play. But the face cards are a great tool for GMs, and they're reasonably cheap, and you can get really any pack, and even if you're running a home game, just pick up a pack from any adventure path or whatever, and you'll find faces that you can apply to your NPCs.
Mm-hmm. The Society ones aren't set to come out until May.
Okay.
I'm just doing over here. Sort by newest first. Wrath of the Righteous set came out. Mummy's Mask set came out. I don't see an Iron God set. Not on either pre-order or unavailable.
Interesting. All right, Darren, post a link if you've got one, and if not, Perram, maybe you and I will do a little research for next episode.
Mm-hmm. Because that would be a huge lot. I mean, not huge, but that'd be a bummer. I love the face cards. They're probably, I mean, especially, I don't know, Rise of the Rune Lords, they have made that game possible to run because they have like this giant cast of characters, and it's what I use to get back into character. I take a look at the character and remember, oh yeah, I roleplay this guy like this. And then it makes it easier for my players to know who they're talking to, because anytime the scene comes up with one of the main cast, their card goes up on the top of the GM screen. I guess you could make them yourself because all these portraits are in the PDFs, but you know that's a step you didn't have to take.
I was thinking maybe you could use the adventure card game cards, but there's really not that many NPCs.
Right. And it's not the same. I mean, you get all the stats in the way, and the art gets smaller, and I wouldn't want to do that. I would rather print them myself than do that.
Elara Dreamstar says she's going to make you cringe, Perram, but her cat destroyed her face cards for Rise of the Rune Lords by peeing on them. She cried.
Oh,
Funny enough,
I'm very sorry.
when I was using
And
the
it's out
item
of print.
cards,
Mm-hmm.
the one of the reasons that we stopped is that we started being a little more diligent with them and writing down where we found them and what they did, because my group wasn't great at identifying items at the time, so we couldn't just write, +1 mace on the back. We had to say, found here, seems to do this, hints at this, hints at this. And then one day the cat, my friend Ari's cat, peed on the cards, and it eliminated all of the marker that we had drawn on the sleeve. And so we just were like, ugh, we're done with these cards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I the item cards I like in principle, but it just becomes more prep work than I'm willing to do because of all the other prep work I do to get the right item cards out and find ones. And, I like the concept, but I like lots of concepts until you try to put them into play, and then you realize, this means this adds X number of minutes per session of prep time.
Now, the other type of collectible, and these are basically they're exclusives. The only items that I can think of that are impossible for everyone to own, or even a significant number of people to own, are the exclusive charity boons that came out for Pathfinder Society a couple of years ago. If you wanted to start a character as a 5th level character, that was the only way of doing it. There was a boon that gave you enough experience to start at 5th level. There was another one that let you play as an assassin, and there is only one assassin in all of Pathfinder Society. He also happens to be the guy that got the start at 5th level, so he qualified for his Assassin Prestige class as quickly as he could, and then went slow track to play the Assassin as long as he could. And that's it. He owns 2 unique boons that at this point he's written all over. So, like, their rarity has been modified. It is now not only is this a one-of-a-kind thing, but it is a one-of-a-kind thing attached to this person, attached to this character. It has been used. If it ever gets sold, it will be sold with his entire character's history attached to it. Mm-hmm. How do you feel about that? You're more of a completist than I am. How do you feel about an exclusive item?
Exclusive items are, for all collectibles, exclusive items are things to be sought after, but you can't really plan a collection on, I must get this or I am not complete or I am not happy with my collection, because that way leads to madness and bankruptcy. I would love to have some of these exclusive, but at the same time, for the purpose they're supposed to serve in society, I'm kind of glad I don't, because I don't want to take, like, the Android or the Mythic level. Like, those are also charity boons. Like, I wanted one of those, and I went in, to try to get one, because that would mean that there wouldn't mean that thing got framed and slid away, and it wouldn't serve its purpose.
So I guess I'm glad you didn't get it in a way.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad this guy's using it. It kills its value, and in things like this, I'm really not sure what sort of real value they have. I'm not sure what kind of resale value they have, because the people that are bidding on these are usually bidding on these to use these. So I'm not really sure what kind of, like, aftermarket they have on these. I know that some of the more common boons, you find them on eBay, of all things. Like the race boons that GMs get, you can find those online. And that sort of disapproved of, but not clamped down on situation with those, because those are supposed to be, again, that's not the purpose these serve. Mm-hmm. I know that, like, crazy thing that's collectible, if you know the Goblin Fire Sneeze, that was going for like $50.
Like from the adventure card game?
Yeah.
That was going for $50?
Yeah.
It was a free RPG Day giveaway, wasn't it?
It was a con giveaway.
It was a con giveaway. Wow, yeah. I had no idea. I may have.
I have about 20.
Wow. I guess you were.
People were throwing them away on the floor and stuff, and like when I saw one on the floor, ooh, goblin, ooh, goblin. If you walk so much as walked by Paizo, they would hand you one. And like I tried politely saying, "Oh, got one already," as many times as I could, but oop, another one before I got a chance to politely refuse it. And eventually, it's just like, "Oh, look, there's 20 goblins." That was not intentional, but that is actually super common with con collectibles of all type. Like Transformers is really bad for this. They do con exclusive Transformers for like Comic Con and toy fairs and stuff like that, and they'll sell them for what is a high but not crazy price, like twice what the figure would normally go for. But it looks like you're holding up a Transformer Con exclusive.
Sort of.
Is
It
that
is the
right, Ryan?
Shockwave Hiss tank. So it's a non-transforming Hiss tank, but it's painted up like Shockwave. So
From the comic.
what? Oh no! The last couple of years, San Diego they
From
did
the
a
comic
GI
book.
Joe Transformers crossover where they would repaint a GI Joe vehicle to look like a vehicle mode of a Transformer. So there's a Sky Striker as Starscream. There's a Sky Striker as Jetfire, a Vamp as Hound, and the Hiss tank as Shockwave.
It's very cool. But then the aftermarket on those become insane. Like I remember they did one that were like the rock band versions of like Optimus Prime and like a few of the things.
Knights of Cybertron.
And those, went for about $50 a piece to get, and then the aftermarket were in the hundreds. So that's super common with con exclusive. Would always go for hundreds, even though you got those for basically nothing. Freebie items like that often do the same thing. So that's not uncommon. I don't like just like. I don't like the kind of people that weigh in spots just for the purpose. I personally feel that these things should serve the purpose that they were designed to serve. So if it was designed to be a collectible, it should go to a collector. If it was designed to be used, it should be used. Like Fire Sneeze should be hitting tables, It shouldn't be sitting in a frame. And that's my opinion on collecting, though it's definitely not like gospel from on high, because obviously people feel differently about it, especially the people that are doing the speculating.
I've held in my hand. This is the rarest piece in my collection. It is, I don't know if you'll be able to see it. It's called Mickey Mouse Cobra Commander, and it's because the Cobra sigil, what should be Snake Eyes, kind of looks like Mickey Mouse ears, and it's a misprint, but it's a mass-produced misprint, so it's not considered an error. The second printing of it fixed this, and I'm wondering if there's a Pathfinder equivalent, something that's kind of like how the Advanced Class Guide has role-playing game, or sorry, has Adventure Path instead of role-playing game, but that's the only printing of that book so far. So I'm wondering if there's any equivalent like that to Pathfinder.
I'm not familiar, besides the one you just mentioned, I'm not familiar with any of those in Pathfinder, but I know there's a few famous ones in Dungeons and Dragons. I experienced personally is there was a print run, a batch of a print run for 4th edition, where they accidentally printed half of it upside down. And like all the books in that print run were like that. It was a small print run, so it was mass produced. I don't usually see RPG get a bonus in that, because a bonus in value or collectability for those sorts of things, because it's usually just considered annoying. Because most people that collect RPGs collect them to use them, unless it's vintage. Things like, I've got a red box, and I have a red box just to say I have a red box. I don't ever intend on using my red box.
Darren Caldemeyer just posted a link to ask.fm/fwesschneider, and he says that if you scroll towards the bottom, Haven't found it yet. Oh, there we go. Our face card's no longer being produced for modules and adventure paths. He says, it's true. I think Mummy's Mask were the last ones. This was 30 days ago. Huh.
Oh, that is sad news.
It specifically says modules and adventure paths, so we might still get more products like the Pathfinder Society one, although I can't think of too many other ones that would be like the Pathfinder Society one. I'm quite surprised by this. I guess it's like you were saying, maybe they just don't sell as well as they probably should.
I guess they're super useful accessories for people that happen to be running that AP, which is a subset of a subset, and things like that always are especially. But, oh well, sad news. I liked them. I wish they would make them more, and I'm buying every single one of them, so I know they're selling at least one, but, that's just one of us.
And actually, going back to the adventure card game, maybe there's worried about market confusion. That somebody who plays the card game but doesn't know the RPG will see a pack of cards
That
and
says
it's like,
Pathfinder cards on it.
Yeah, exactly. And they just don't want that. This is speculation. This is the first I've seen of this announcement.
Right, and I haven't seen any other announcements, but thank you for the info, Darren.
Yeah, actually, I look forward to reading this entire. It looks like an Ask Me Anything.
Yeah, I definitely need to read this. I did not know that this was a thing out there. So thank you for pointing us to this.
Benjamin Chernick says the first printing of Bestiary 2 had a bunch of pages out of order. I thought I had a first printing of Bestiary 2, but I never noticed any pages out of order, Perram.
I have a first printing of Bestiary 2. I never noticed the pages.
I wonder if it's just some of the first printing. But I guess that goes back to what you were saying then.
A sub-print run.
Yeah, I would not be interested in having that even for the curiosity, because there's no story there. That you can't be like, look, N comes before O. No, that's right. N comes before L. How weird is that, right? Yeah, that's about as much curiosity as there would be to that. Whereas Mickey Mouse Cobra Commander, it's Mickey Mouse Cobra Commander. That in itself is fun.
Though on the misprint I was talking about, there is something appealing to be seen reading a book called Arcane Power upside down. All right.
So, Perram, now we have to make a choice.
Yes.
I'm going to say this will be the end of the news banter segment because we've already been talking for an hour. Do we move on to the reviews, or do we save this stuff for when the audio between us is better? Because according to Francis Leboeuf, the audio is coming fine to our listeners. There's just the video is laggy.
I say that because we've kind of caught our stride again, I think we should just go ahead because I think that's what we should do.
All right, then we will be right back with the reviews right after this.
Thanks for hanging in there, guys. Sorry for the troubles and stuff that you're experiencing. We will try to do what we can in editing, but it looks like at least the audio lag between me and Ryan has cleared up, so that at least this should sound great.
Yeah, that's the big thing. If you guys don't get the audio, then we can't strip the audio from the video, and we can't make a podcast. And we are a podcast. We record video stream, but we are a podcast.
Right.
So
I mean, as much as we love our video viewers, our audio listeners outnumber you by legion. I keep rooting for YouTube to become a humongous, massive part of the audience and stuff, but the numbers don't bear it out. But we love the YouTube stuff. We love you all, and if you're a dedicated YouTube listener, just think that is something that makes you special.
Perram made a small adjustment to the review section.
What is it?
Pathfinder Origins #2, because I'm not done.
Well, that's very good, because they haven't, the shipment that was supposed to have that in for me didn't have it in, and it's going to be in my next shipment. So evidently something has happened with Paizo's own batch of these books.
Well, I have mine.
I'm jealous.
From the local comic book store. So maybe we'll go back
if
to
I went to my
kind of just
local
cover as much as we can about
store,
Origins.
they would have it.
Sorry, I was talking. I missed everything you just said.
Mm-hmm.
What'd you say?
Oh, no, you didn't miss anything.
Okay. Ready for
I
the
said I
reviews?
bet my would have it.
Go.
I'm ready, and we're going to start with.
Booyah.
Mhm. Oh, before we do that, let me pull up the store page for that so that we can put it on screen.
Good call.
All right, guys. If you got any questions, we're going to be talking about Monster Codex, and we're going to be talking about Pathfinder comic, and some pig. All right, let me maybe make it big, because if I don't make it big, then you guys can't actually read what we're doing.
And Perram, I will let you know I haven't done an in-depth read-through of Monster Codex, so you're going to have to take the lead.
Okay.
Which I'm going to mention in my introduction. I didn't want that to be the first you're hearing of it.
Okay. Excellent. It is a good book. I like it. All right, I'm ready when you is.
All right, 3, 2, 1. In the Pathfinder reviews section, nope, it's just called the review section. In the review section, we talk about interesting books, interesting items that we found that might be of interest to Pathfinder enthusiasts, either from Paizo, third-party publishers, either books or other items. You never know what we're going to talk about, except you could probably narrow it down to the reasonable things we're going to be talking about, like the newest hardcover. This is actually a few months back. This is a November scheduled release. Usually, traditionally, the November release comes out in December. But that's what this is. This year's monster book or adversary book, or however you want to categorize it, is the Monster Codex. It is a hardcover book that is chock full of monsters, not new monsters. Every single monster in here is familiar. Most of them are fairly iconic. What's different is that now they've got class levels. Now they've got unique feats and items, and they've all been built up and specialized so that you don't just have to run with one gnoll. You could run with an army of unique gnolls. Now, Perram, I recently got my copy, and actually, I guess I'll just point out, I ordered what was described as a damaged copy from Paizo.com, so I got a bit of a price reduction there.
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea how they can qualify this as a damaged copy. There is a small nick on the back cover, and some of the pages were sticking together, but overall, this is as pristine as any of the books that I've had for more than a year.
Yeah, when Pathfinder says the word mint, they mean it. That's been my experience for every non-mint thing I've gotten from them, which is not many, but they're non-mint, though that's not a guarantee. I mean, technically, on
Sure.
the non-mint. And for the price reduction, but yeah, they're usually my experience is it's a stretch and nothing to be together. Was actually something about this print run. They had the pages slightly sticking together. It didn't cause any damage to yours, did it? Like no page rip or anything separating them?
Nope, not so far. Really, I probably wouldn't have even noticed, except I was so confused about how this was a non-mint copy. I was expecting it to be like have a gash down the cover where somebody used a knife to open a box and accidentally nicked it.
Ooh, ow.
But that didn't happen, Perram.
No. Now, you mentioned that this is a book full of monsters, but there actually are new monsters in here, which will be something I'll talk about as something I like about it. Now, how this is organized is, like you said, if you've read the NPC Codex, it's similar in concept, in that these are characters. So there's not Gelatinous Cube. There's not the Gelatinous Cube group. These are humanoid monsters or undead monsters or things that, when you use them in play, you usually want to use them in multiple formats. So goblins and drow, and I mean, we've talked on the show before about how using about goblins and giving them class levels and beefing them up and trying to make them still feel goblin-y. That we did that as a whole topic of an episode, and we even put a PDF up on the site full of goblins we designed like that. So it's when you, and that's always been a problem. Like when you want to fight the orc army, you open up the book and there's orc, and it's one CR, and it's got one hit die, and it's, so great. I can throw this guy down, and he's an encounter, and a few of these is a decent fight for first, second, third level characters. But you need the Orc War Chief and the Orc Shaman and all this stuff to exist. And that usually meant going to the books and making this thing yourself. Hero Lab's a great resource for that. Loved using that for this very purpose because, as we all know, it takes some time to build a Pathfinder character, and that's what you were doing. Building up monsters with class levels, which is what these characters really need, because most of the monstrous races are just races, and usually they're just green or way too powerful to be used as PC races normally. So they're still people, so you would have to go up there and create it like you'd create a full character, and that meant it's probably it's half an hour. You want your Orc War Chief to be good and War Chiefy, so he's going to be high level with lots of classes and equipment and stuff. So that's what, an hour prep time by hand?
Yes.
This has been a problem that lots of people have been trying to solve and offer solutions. There was many PDF products that are nothing but bunches of monster stat blocks with PC levels. I forget. Lazy DM. Lazy DM was a product line for that. In the Pathfinder version, I think it's called Lazy GM. He offered it, but this is Pathfinder, so having the Pathfinder quality on it and Pathfinder art on it has some value there too. And that's what this is. So you've got each monster type has several monster characters statted out in it. Usually, you get some low-level guys that are closer to the base stat block of the monster, but different from the actual thing you would find in the bestiary. So, like the ghoul, for instance, its alternate is a ghoul rogue, whereas the ghoul itself would be a ghoul. Like usually in the bestiaries, like the orc, the default is an orc warrior, or they assume that if it's a monster, it's a warrior as its base class, the NPC class warrior. So if you do have a low level one, it's like a different base class, but still within that range, and then slowly stepping up in challenge rating until you get to what would be the boss or the leader of this group, and he'll be something massive like the Vampire Lord, or the I forgot what they called the goblin boss. He's a oversized fat goblin fighter. Anti-paladins were pretty common as choices here, and also they tried to fill in the common themes. So you're going to get, usually for each race, you're going to get their basic dudes that sort of are your rank and file. So you get your rogues and your fighters, or your barbarians, like gnolls were like a lot of barbarians at the lower levels. And then you get your mid-level dudes, then these guys are usually the more specialized. So this is where you get your support characters, such as your clerics and your shamans and your wizards. And then at the high end, you would get your bosses. And usually these guys were fighters or arcane casters. That seemed to be. Notice that almost without a doubt, you could count on a cleric in each race block, and you could count on an anti-paladin. A lot of anti-paladins in this book. Some of my favorites included the Bogart anti-paladin, because he's like this decked out in all this like black armor and this like slimy blue ball, and I'm like, I never thought of Bogarts as being like completely awesome bad guys before. I usually just use them as jokes, but that's a scary one. That's a very scary one. And that's sort of how the book goes for each of them. And in addition to the normals, the normal range of monsters, there's also what they call the oddity for each one. And this is usually something very out there. that is related to this race. Sometimes it's an animal that goes good with them. For instance, the Drow have this three-headed serpent that they use as their oddity, and the Ghoul has ghoul animals. Yes, what was that called again? The serpent? Since you got the page open?
The Brakarn Viper, and it's actually a serpent construct.
Oh, yes. And that's neat and weird, so I kept finding myself really looking forward to, like, okay, this is a cool thing. The Frost Giant's really cool. I like this. I like the Frost Giant King. He's cool, but I really want to see what the oddity is for thing. Oh, it's an 8 giant called God. But it was always like that. You would always get this hard to pronounce monster at the end of the sections, or weird variant of the race. And I can't find myself looking forward to those. I kept stuttering on the ghouls. But the ghoul gets the ghoul animal, which is a way to make, well, ghoul animals. So they had the ghoul bat and the ghoul dog. So, oh, and that's another thing I really liked about the book, is they focused on what made that monster in all the builds. So even though you're going to see a lot of fighters and rogues at the lower levels and barbarians and stuff, like in the gnolls builds, but they all have pack tactics. They have teamwork feats. They're really improved version of Step Up called Coordinated Reposition. An ally who's you're threatening takes a 5-foot step, you can take a 5-foot step, which means that they can flank just about anything lickety-split. And the goblins were just, well, the goblins were just weird. Every single one of their creatures was just weird and out there, and usually blew things up. They had 2 different alchemists. Lots of art used from Weeby Goblins for that, but they had 2 different alchemists, one of them riding a vulture and throwing bombs down on things, so that was great. And like I said, they just follow the theme. So every time you put the monster down, it still acts like that monster. And this is usually backed up by a surprising amount of crunch. Like, I expected there to be some crunch in this book. There is a massive amount of character options in this book. Like, more so than anything I've seen besides a pure splat book. I hate using that term, but something like Ultimate Combat or Advanced Player's Guide has more crunch. But for a monster book, it's literally 1 page in every 4 is crunch that are character option possibilities, such as that coordinated reposition feat. Now, all of them are themed for what monsters. A lot of them require you to be that monster because it uses something that the monster has. Using the hobgoblins, for example, they have lots of ways to enhance their intimidation. They got a feat that says when they use intimidation to demoralize a target, they can make a swift attack action against that target. And hurtful, that's what it's called, hurtful. And so a lot of the hobgoblins then use that feat, and they're in crazy high intimidate scores. The base level Mook Hobgoblin, not Hobgoblin, Bugbear. The base level Mook Bugbear has like plus 18 to his Intimidate, so he's going to get this off every turn. So he's going to get to do what makes him a Bugbear every single combat, because Bugbears are supposed to be these stalky, scary things, and these are frightening creatures to the point that the oddity at the end of this is an undead bugbear who wasn't done scaring things so much that he has to scare things. Ryan.
The bugbear is my favorite thing in this book, because the bugbear was at once one of my favorite things about Classic Monsters Revisited and my biggest disappointment about Classic Monsters Revisited. Classic Monsters Revisited is a 3.5 era Pathfinder campaign setting book back when it was called Pathfinder Chronicles. And it describes it as this is a race of the boogeyman. They will stalk you. They will appear invisible to everyone in the party but one person. And it's like, wow, that is amazing. I always just thought of bugbears as slightly hairier orcs, but no, this is a completely different race with a completely different feel. But Classic Monsters Revisited did not have almost any crunch. And so I'm stuck with the default monster stat, which is he's got more strength than Dex, even though he's supposed to be all crazy stalkery. And the only thing that reflects this really like creepiness is that he has a +4 racial bonus on Move Silently. 7 years later, I finally have the crunch to make the bugbears what I want them to be. And one of the feats is called Bushwhack, and I think that's a perfect combination of how these are strong, powerful creatures, but they're also super sneaky. So if he catches you flat-footed, then he can grapple you, and if he successfully grapples a flat-footed target, he gets a free grapple attempt to pin him. So it's just like he just comes out of nowhere, and he's got you, and you're on the ground, and you're completely at his mercy. And there's also a spell that's similar to what was described in the book about how bugbears make you invisible to... in the book it said that a bugbear is only visible to one person. They've got a spell called Isolate that makes you invisible to anyone that has an attitude better than indifferent towards you. So if you're in a party with all of your allies and a bugbear anti-paladin, for example, or bard, inquisitor, there's a nice range of bugbear casters that can cast this on you. He casts Isolate, and then suddenly you are invisible to everyone. So if he casts it on the party bard, you could be like strumming away on your lute trying to inspire everybody, but you don't exist to your party at that time. That is so cool. And
Yeah.
like I've never seen a spell like that. That is amazing.
I know, I jumped on that one too. If you weren't going to mention it, I was so going to rave on that, because that's an encounter-inspiring spell. I mean, your players are going to remember that happening to them when the crazy, sneaky bugbear, like you don't even see him for half the encounters that you're encountering him, and like, because it doesn't just make you invisible, it makes you invisible and inaudible and impossible to notice in all ways. So you just do not exist unless they happen to bump into you. But even then, they won't recognize that it's you. So it's just, there's this crazy invisible thing here.
So
now, if you have the invisibility, it does break it. It's not super. Yeah, bugbears are great. The drow were good too, because all the drow, like the repeater crossbows, but also long swords and feats to make the long swords decent. So they switch hitters, which is good because drow poison. So they try to close on these these as well, just peppering them for pretty good damage, actually, when they're able to pump out. And then, as soon as they get there, I was like, okay, we've closed to them. Nope, quick draw, sword, die! And they're good at using the swords.
You mentioned how Isolate is an encounter-building spell. One thing you haven't mentioned is that for every chapter, there is a page of encounters.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, they're organized into groups and challenge ratings and themes. Like the ghouls. Go back to the ghouls, they had an encounter called the second floor killers. So, and it like doesn't just give you what the encounter is, but then it gives you an idea on how to use this encounter. So it's like these are ghouls that would be stalking a town, sneaking into the top floors of people's houses at night and killing them and sneaking out until they get too much heat and then they move on to the next town. I mean, it's not just a list of here's a ghoul stalker and 4 regular ghouls, and that's just going to be a CR5 encounter, which in itself would be useful. But then it's like, and here's how you can use them to really screw with your players. It's such a useful book.
And if the idea of this book is that this does the work for you, those encounter pages really flesh out how you can make these sections useful for a lot of different CRs. So I've got the Fire Giants open here. Goes CR 12, 13, and then 16. And it's like, oh, what if I needed a really good CR 14 or 15 encounter? Well, then you go over, there we go. You go over to the encounters. Oh, there's the Scouting Party, which is a CR 15 encounter. So the range of CRs that are covered per chapter is actually quite a lot higher than just the CRs of the monsters. In the same thing, the highest CR Fire Giant is the Fire Giant King. He's CR 20. But if you want to run a higher level thing than that, if Fire Giants are your end game, you can run the Royal Accompaniment, which is a CR23 encounter.
Now I have almost universal praise for this book, but I have two criticisms that I just wish they would have addressed, and I think this is a symptom to the fact that the writing for this book was divided. To like a lot of writers worked on this at once, all at the same time, and that is in the uber high level creatures like the giants. I'm going to call it the frost giants specifically. The spellcasters being spellcasters. Now this is something that's not new. This has been a problem when you have something that's spellcaster and the spellcaster that rating, but it doesn't actually increase its challenge rating because it's not going to be casting spells worth anything. So when you have the frost giant ice sorcerer or ice wizard, I forget which one he is. The sorcerer, he's an ice sorcerer. He's only able to cast third level spells, and he only has one, and they pick dispel magic as a spell, and then you start reading his tactics, and he's having to use a wand to do all his frost magicking. Like, there's only a couple of actual frosty magic in his known spell list, so like, this frost wizard doesn't have snowball, doesn't have cone of cold, or any of the classic snow-based spells we know of, because he can't. He would be huge. It would be a CR 20, 21 to get him to be a decent spellcaster and a frost giant. And so, I mean, it's a problem with the system itself, but this is a problem that this book didn't solve, especially since they would have to run into this problem pretty much with every high-level spellcaster monster that it tosses at you that doesn't just happen to be a 15th level kobold sorcerer or whatever. There aren't 15th level kobold sorcerers in this book, by the way. But they did invent a solution. They just didn't use it. And that is that all the monsters are stat blocked out with class levels. And then in the back of the book, we have a real gem of a chapter, which are the class templates for the monsters. So you can apply a template and suddenly to a monster. So you take your base frost giant and you slap the barbarian template on it, and it says all strength based abilities are +2, and it can rage with this effect this many times a day. And like adjust its, I think it's improved uncanny dodge if it has this many hit dice or more. And then and increase its CR by this. And it is an effective barbarian without me having to throw on a bunch of barbarian levels on it. It gets the important barbarian trick. And they have those for the spellcasters. So if it has this many to this many hit dice, it has this levels of spells, and it gets this much CR. If it has this many to this many hit dice, it can cast these spells. And that would solve, and it would have solved this problem to just throw the sorcerer template onto the frost giant. It suddenly has access to the high-level spells that it needs to be an effective caster of that CR, because it might be a frost giant, but if it's the sorcerer, it needs to be doing the caster thing. That needs to be the thruster, so it needs to be throwing out the cone of colds. It needs to be throwing out the phantasmal killers that characters of that level are throwing. The template would have done it. So the template chapter is so great, but it doesn't work. When they had the solution all along in the back of the book, they just didn't use it.
I was thinking, what about some kind of metamagic feat where you add a bonus to caster level based on your size, and it's just like you're making bigger magic. You've got bigger somatic components because your hands are so big, and you're doing these giant things, so your magic missiles are effectively +1 per size category above medium.
That would be cool.
It doesn't exist.
No.
That's an idea.
No.
I want to call out one other thing that I appreciate about this book. NPC Codex was strictly core rulebook, and so those builds are interesting, but a lot of the times if you've got a class that has an issue, that was solved. Like, let's say the monk. The monk, we've talked about how once they invented the styles in Ultimate Combat, the monk became a much more viable class, much more fun, much more variety. And then the NPC Codex comes out, and they go back to just the core monk. the Monster Codex does not shy away from using any other hardcover option. So we've got a Fire Giant Magus. We've got all the Anti-Paladins, like you said, which is great because we never get anything for Anti-Paladins. We've got, I don't know, we've got references to spells from all the different hardcovers. We've got references to different feats, equipment. Basically, they didn't say, like, let's worry about what book this comes in. No, they said, let's worry about what is the most appropriate option for this character, with maybe an eye towards let's not go crazy.
Right. Now, at first I actually panicked a little bit because I started the book by reading Bogart. And Bogart at first doesn't use a single option out of anything but the core rulebook. And I was specifically looking for this specific reason. And then I forgot that Anti-Paladin wasn't core in Pathfinder because it was core in 3.5. So I was like, oh, that's just Anti-Paladin. Everybody has Anti-Paladin. That's a core option. And it's not in Pathfinder. That didn't come out till later. But I was like worried, oh man. And it was actually probably deep into Bugbear before I saw The Alchemist, and I'm like, oh, thank God. Now, they don't use it, they don't shy from getting the sources when it would make sense, but they also don't go overboard with it. It's not like every other character is an alchemist or a witch or a swashbuckler, or you get the idea. And it also seems to be one non-core source per critter. So if it has feats from a book, it usually will be the same. I didn't see too many for that feat, divine for that feat. I didn't see any of that.
I am going to just nitpick and say it's a bummer that the book starts with Bogarts. It just
well, it has to be alphabetical.
It's alphabetical, so God, it's too bad there's nothing that comes before Bogarts. Too bad they couldn't have replaced Bogarts with something that would have been more interesting, so that we could start with something cool like Bugbear, something a little bit more fundamental to the game. Because I got the book, I opened it, I'm super excited, and I go to the first chapter, and it's like, what's wrong, people?
Yeah, but it picks up real quick. I mean, like you said, Bugbear's good, and then it gets into the really cool stuff. The giants were all very useful. Ghoul, I liked Ghoul because I know that Ghoul is supposed to be the semi-intelligent undead, but I don't really know how intelligent to run undead. But seeing things like Ghoul Stalker and and all these like high-level ghouls that actually look like high-level characters that are undead, and they have one goal, and they all look like they're wanting to get that goal, which is to eat you while you're still alive to feel it. And that's so good. It sort of sold me on Ghoul again. Like, oh, this is how I can run this creature. This is different. Like the Drow, seeing that, oh, that's how they want me to run Drow. They want me to switch it between a lot of ranged options and a lot of really inconvenient options, like these freaking bombs that knock you down when you use them. Oh, goodness. And imagine that in the Underdark or Darkland settings where it's a tiny little cliff you're walking side to side. Boom! Great. And it's just good. They sticking to the theming and then explaining how you use this, and then of course the crunch backs it up.
Darren Caldemeyer says the Monster Codex has already been referenced in the Pathfinder module Plunder and Peril. Ooh. So it seems like they're going to be treating it like they treat the NPC Codex and like the other bestiaries. And so I'm glad that this is just a super amazing book. Because if they're going to treat it like it's an important book, I'm glad that I'm excited when I see it referenced rather than maybe like, oh, Monster Codex, okay.
I mean, it's also going to make life easier for Pathfinder Society players, especially because in NPC Codex, I mean, it modules. Suddenly, almost every NPC was a Codex entry because really big bad answers. You don't need your unique special snowflake take on this archetype of character, and I don't mean arc. That's the problem with Pathfinder language. I mean like a style of character. If there's a good thug for this challenge rating, then you can use the NPC Codex thug, and it's all built for you. And yeah, it might not be exactly how you would have written it, but well, look, boom, boom, done, and it's interesting and it works and it has all the math and strategy design behind it done. It just saves you time. And for running my home campaigns, NPC Codex has been completely invaluable. And before that, the Game Mastery Guide's little NPC section. But the big hole is these were all core races and core classes. So now we have options that are neither. So I can have my Orc army, my Kobold warband, can march forth or scurry forth under cover with pit traps. How do you make a portable pit trap? I'm sure they'll figure it out.
The pit spells?
Well, yeah, but they're kobolds. They're not supposed to use the spells. But a spellcaster does. But they're little travel warriors. Yeah. So they're supposed to make this. I mean, like the best kobold dungeon is one in which you never see the kobold.
Okay, so what if it's some kind of like rifle that you put a wand in and it shoots that spell?
They already did that.
Oh yeah, they did the whole archetype, the
yes.
spell slinger.
Yes, the spell slinger. Oh man, but anyway. So just general great approval of this book. I give it a strong buy.
Yeah, this book also made me excited for another product, the Monster Codex pawn set, because even like, let's say I'm running, like right now I'm running Rise of the Rune Lords, and there have been a lot of ghouls.
Mm-hmm.
And the product won't be out in time to help me, but let's say I don't want to just use the 5 different ghoul pawns that I have, because it's all the same art with just a little different number in the bottom. And so if it's like, whose turn is it? Oh, it's red number ghoul. And now it's blue number ghoul. No, now I get to be like, it's this crazy cool hunched over ghoul, and now it's the ghoul creeper's turn, and it's the ghoul huntmaster's turn. And even if I'm using just the base ghoul stats, I have a wide variety of art to choose from to represent the different ghouls that you're facing off against and how creepy they can be. Next up. Perram?
I do. I usually go out of my way when I'm hunting down miniatures to find like matching sets. You cut out on me.
Oh, sorry.
Completely. Yeah.
So, next product, something completely different. Something we don't review too often. It's a Pathfinder comic. From Dynamite. This is Pathfinder Origins. We talked to Eric Mona a few months ago, and he explained how Pathfinder Origins works. It's a 6-issue miniseries. Each issue features one of the iconics, one of the 6 iconics that we've already got in the main Pathfinder comics that were written by Jim Zub. It will feature them teaming up in like a flashback story with an iconic that we either haven't seen or, in Leanie's case, made a brief appearance in one comic. And each issue is about the 2 of them on a single adventure just doing something cool. And it's written by, they're written by 3 Paizo staffers, Eric Mona, James Sutter, F. Wesley Snyder. The first issue is Eric Mona's issue. Features Valeros teaming up with Amiri. And that's one of the things, most of the team-ups, there is a thematic tie between them. So in this case, we've just got the 2 just melee violent people. So the artwork is by Tom Garcia for issue number 1, colors by Mohan. And it starts off with a bit of a bookend where the 6 Pathfinder characters are talking to Sheila Hydemark, who's been a reoccurring background character, or a reoccurring character in the City of Secrets, which is the second of the Pathfinder comic story arcs. And she's just kind of saying like, hey, you guys are you guys, and I'm kind of tired of you guys. And then they're all kind of like, no, we've all got different stories where we can really show you different sides of our personalities, such as Valeros, who's being accused of being a drunken oaf. And he starts by telling a story where he is strung up in Crown Stump for drunken brawling. It's like, all right, Valeros, you might not have understood what you're being accused of. But here it goes. He gets hired up to join a caravan, and someone else that's in that caravan is Amiri. They team up, they go on an adventure, they fight around a campfire, they tell stories, we find out Amiri's backstory, which for comic readers, this would be the first time you're seeing it. For Pathfinder enthusiasts, you probably are fairly familiar where she got the giant sword, where she comes from. But it's cool to see it illustrated for the first time. Or at least that was something I was looking forward to. I didn't realize there would be more to it than that. The adventure continues. It really is just the two of them as far as characters you might recognize, although it does references a familiar cult, which I don't want to spoil. But it's clearly set in Galarian. It's going to new parts of Galarian that we haven't seen before. The artwork is similar to the style in the comics, but it's a little bit different. And it is pretty much what you would expect. There's a couple of highlights. One, it ends on a cliffhanger, which is nice. I figured that this might be all we see of Amiri, but if this is all we see of Amiri, then they have wasted a really cool twist at the end. And two, the other highlight is that at first I thought it was a little expositional, but then either intentionally or just by happenstance, Eric Mona uses the exposition to put a twist on Amiri's backstory. At least what I know of Amiri's backstory, and I don't want to ruin the twist, but what I know of the backstory is that, without spoiling it. So I thought one thing, and it actually has changed a significant detail of Amiri's backstory. And the way it's written is actually interesting because it's during that campfire scene where she's telling her story, and then the art accompanying it is not exactly in line with the words that she's saying on the page. And so if you're just reading it and not paying attention to what's actually going on, then you take it at face value. But it ends up that part of Amiri's backstory is just a bold-faced lie. And it's made her it made for a really interesting twist. Now, there are a couple of downsides to the issue. One of them is it's more of a stylistic problem. So the bookend is that this is a story being told. And then within the story that Valeros is telling, Amiri is telling a story. So it's Valeros telling a story about Amiri telling a story. And then that story is not actually accurate, which Valeros doesn't know. So we gain access to information that the storyteller does not have, and it's a bit of a storytelling inception. A flashback within a flashback it gets a little bit complicated. Nobody's going to get confused, but just it kind of messes with your headspace. And the only other complaint is that at the beginning, well, like I already mentioned, it's quite expositional at the very beginning, where Sheila Hydemark is she's complaining about the characters, but what she's actually doing is just summarizing them in case this is the first time that you're reading the comic. It's a little bit heavy-handed, and when you know that it's someone that that I believe has never written a comic before or does not write a lot of fiction, even though Eric Mona is a talented published writer, this is his first time writing a comic, and so you're kind of looking for flaws. And so if you're looking for flaws, yes, it starts out fairly expositional, but like I said, that actually ends up working in the comic's favor. So for all we know, Eric Mona is a genius when it comes to using exposition to his advantage. Perram, you also read the first issue, right?
So it sounds really... No. My first issue got held up, something with Pazzo's batch and something, so I'm going to end up getting 1 and 2 in the next week. So I'll be reading them both. But I read the first one because I opened up the little envelope that I was expecting it in, and I'm like, oh, here's my AP module, where's my comic? Oh. So I have a question.
Yes.
You mentioned it has Sheila in it, Sheila Hadmarch. Is this continuing the storyline continuity in its bookends? Like, is this actually taking place after City of Secrets?
Yes, but of little consequence. Sheila Hardmark is Basil Exposition. It could have been anyone. It's just that this is a familiar character. She is doing nothing that defines her as Sheila Hardmark. If you're a big fan of Sheila Hardmark, it's fun to see her again with a new artist interpretation, but really, this could have been anybody. This could have been just a dialogue box coming from off-screen, like some kind of interrogation scene.
Okay, cool. I guess I'm just glad that this is the problem I have with the Pathfinder comics, in that they're all really good, and I like them. I really like City of Secrets. I love the first 12 run. Jim Zub's work on it has been great, and I'm sad to see him leave for other ventures. Though I'm glad he's having success. Everything I hear, Wayward is phenomenal. I haven't got to read it yet. I hope to probably. I guess I'm going to have to wait till the TPB really, because it's not been a book my comic store has been getting in. Um, but but with Dynamite, with these third-party books, especially with RPG comics, they just disappear. That happens all too frequently. I mean, it happened recently to the D&D comic book, and it was good, and then just gone. D&D has had several runs, and they just disappear. Comics, that happens to comics constantly, even when it's the big ones. I mean, I can't count how many Marvel series I've gotten into just to have them stop. Like the first run of Runaways. Thankfully, they ended up bringing that back thanks to fan demand, and the selling of the manga-styled TPB got them to bring them back. But like the first 12 issues of Runaways, wow, this is a book that's really different, really awesome. Way to go, Marvel. Gone. So I was worried that this was going to be that sort of situation. I still worry that it might be that sort of situation, especially since they didn't continue with the storyline. They took a B track and called it Pathfinder Origins, and talking about characters and events that Noah didn't really, like, they were building characters and story arcs and relationships that this storyline continuing. So I'm after Origins, but there's no guarantee, especially since they're not even doing it as continuous runs. They're doing it as series blocks and changing the title every time.
I like to think that, because, I mean, Jim Zub's relationship with Paizo and with Dynamite is still really strong, so the fact that he's succeeding elsewhere means that maybe he didn't have the time to just continue to do the Pathfinder comic nonstop. But I like to think that the continuation of the main continuity, that's kind of being held for him. He has kind of defined the voice and the stories of the Pathfinder comic book. And actually, he set a really high bar. So Eric Mona's dialogue is good. It's not Jim Zub good, but there's not a lot of dialogue that is Jim Zub good. So I hope Jim Zub comes back. Actually, if I see him at a convention, I'm going to beg him to come back, because, like you, this is a version. This is a look at the Iconics that we haven't gotten before, because the Iconics are meant to be static. And here they're fluid, here they're changing and evolving, and the relationships are becoming really interesting. So yeah, it would be really unfortunate if the last we got of either the main storyline or even Jim Zub's version of the storyline was City of Secrets.
Right. I mean,
because it set up a lot of expectations for what more could come.
Right. I mean, I love City of Secrets. I love the first 12 run. This is good, not just for game comics. These were good comics. This was good character development. This was good storytelling. It was a good book on its own without the Pathfinder name tag. And before these comics, the iconic characters were neat, but I could care less about them because the characters I cared about were Radovan and Jaeger, or those types of characters. The novels were the characters you cared about, and it was getting to the point to where I was waiting for the novel characters to start popping in the art as the Iconics.
I would be okay if after Pathfinder Origins we got like Pathfinder B Team, and it was Damiel and Alain and Feya and just all of the APG characters.
You just built like the evil team.
Oh, yeah, I guess I did. Well, I mean, Alain's not evil. He's just obnoxious. He's pompous. But what if I did? What if it is the team of the guys that are slightly more evil?
Jerk.
Yeah, he's a jerk.
So, it could be a cool book.
It would be really different from the main title.
And I bet that would. And I guarantee Wes would probably jump on that. It gets to be Setiel and Elaine. Absolutely.
I have picked up
what he would write.
I've picked up number 2. I haven't read too far into it. That's why I won't be reviewing it. But that's the James Sutter book, so I won't know what Wes's comic book writing is like until, I guess, issue 3, which maybe the Celtiel... Oh, who was Celtiel teamed up with? Oh,
Siani.
Sayoni?
The
Yeah,
magic
that
group.
sounds right. Yeah, and then it was Lem and Ezrin, right? Was the other magic team up?
Mm-hmm.
I'm enjoying these. I like one-shot comics, although I did compliment Pathfinder Origins #1 for being a cliffhanger ending. But it's more intriguing because I know who these characters are, that this being cliffhanger means I want to see more of it. It could have just been like a twist ending and then we never find out more about that. And in other circumstances, I might be fine with that. In this circumstance, I want to follow up to the Amiri story.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, that's how it always works. You always leave your audience wanting more.
You do, yeah. Kevin Smith called it the perpetual second act. Just you never actually get the conclusion to all these setups. Perram, we've got something else that we don't normally review.
Oh?
But I think in this case, just the magnificence of this character that we have to talk about, it justifies dedicating a whole chunk of the review segment to reviewing a single miniature from a Pathfinder Miniatures line.
That's a tall order, man.
Well, Lost Coast #9 of 45 is the incomparable, the adorable Squealy Nord.
Oh,
I cannot tell you how much I love this.
Yeah, I would love that miniature too. I don't have a Squealy. I need to go
Now,
get
let's
a
be
Squealy.
honest. If they just released a pig as some kind of part of a familiar pack or whatever, even if it was this pig, it would be like, okay, that's a pretty good pig. Now, I think because this is Squealy Nord, the bar was set a little higher because this is an adorable pig. This is just
Yes.
It just jumps right off of the base, and it's like the facial features, like he's expressive. He's got hope. He's perfect, Perram. This miniature is perfect. But what's even better is that when Squealy Nord's introduced in Weeby Goblins, there's this big setup of like, oh, you have to face this terrible challenger. You don't know who it is. You are facing Squealy Nord, the beast that the Licktoad goblins keep specifically to feed the bad goblins to. This is a ferocious, terrifying monster. Boom, it's Squealy Nord. And the next time I get to play Weeby Goblins and drop that down on the table, and like just the more you could set it up as you are basically going to be facing Jason Voorhees in pig form, only for this thing, this smiling, bright-eyed pig that, for whatever reason, has a really happy life among the Licktoad goblins. He's beyond an iconic. He's just something special. Perram, you're showing the cover to Weeby Goblins Free, which is this year's RPG module. It's part 3 in the Weeby Goblins series. And never fear, Squealy Nord is right there on the cover. And from what Adam Daigle was saying on our Facebook page, there is something to be excited about this time. That Squealy Nord doesn't just show up. He's got presence. He's got a purpose in this one. Now, I had a couple of guesses. The first one was that Squealy Nord took levels in Alchemist, and that mutagen would allow him to change between his Weeby Goblins 1 and Weeby Goblins 2 sizes, because he gained quite a lot of weight going into Weeby Goblins 2, but from the cover it looks like he lost it off. Also that he took the prehensile tail discovery, and so he throws bombs by launching them off his spring-like tail. Now, Adam Daigle says not quite that silly. My second prediction was that Squealy Nord, or Chief Squealy, as the foursome of former Licktoad goblins call him, has seen and survived more than one pig's share of messed up experiences, so who is better qualified to lead the reborn Licktoad tribe? Adam Daigle was suspiciously silent. He did not reply to that comment. It could be because yesterday was his birthday and he's on vacation back in his hometown and he just doesn't have time for my nonsense. Or it could be that I was right on the money.
Oh, yes.
To wait until free RPG day.
And goblins can totally be evil druids. There has been one. Awaken Squealy.
Perram! Yes! Perram, do you have the date of free RPG day on you?
I don't, but this webpage does. It's the first Saturday in May. Wait, I might be thinking of that's Free Comic Book Day.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. No, it is June 20th.
June 20th. Oh man, I
What are you
cannot
looking
wait for
for?
June 20th. That's when we'll find
To
out
that
just
one.
how accurate our predictions are.
Yeah. Yep. Any prediction? All right.
Any prediction? Well, you've got the goblins facing a harpy on the cover. I'm actually not even sure what level this one is. The last one was level 3, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would speculate this one will be level 5. They'll probably go up by 2 every time, so that
Right. And any more than that, and you start getting unwieldy, and not a great intro to the game.
and it also limits how many more Weeby Goblins they can publish. If every
Right.
3 years we get a new one that's 2 levels up, I'll be happy. I'll be happy for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Now I wonder, yeah. I mean, if this is going to end up being like anti-paladin, Moog is going to be like running around.
Cool.
Because I mean, evidently, if
Moog's a
you're
cleric. He's a dedicated man of the cloth. Dirty, filthy cloth.
all right. Well, I guess that's the last thing we had on the review schedule.
It is. Squealy Nord, let me just find what he's going for on Paizo.com, assuming you can still get him, because...
I mean, I would not be surprised if Squealy Nord goes for tens of dollars.
I believe he was an uncommon. He may even be a common. He's going for $3.50, and looks like there are still Squealy Nords available. You need this pig.
Yes,
if for
everyone
no
needs
other
this
reason
pig.
than to have Squealy Nord.
Mm-hmm.
He is a medium. Really, he's a medium? He looks like a small to me. No, maybe he is medium. And I don't see his commonness.
And especially since, because the Goblin packs were so cheap, you probably got a full set of the main casts. You need this to complete the set.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I believe that one of the reasons Squealy Nord got made was because when the Weeby Goblins builder set was announced, he was the most demanded figure.
Yeah, I wanted him, but I did. Yes.
Oh, well, now you must have him, Perram.
Yes. Because he must be the mount. A mount.
Mm-hmm. He's medium, so actually, yeah, he could be a mount for a goblin.
Yep, totally. I mean, much better than Lizard.
Yeah, whatever, Lizard.
Yeah. Silly vultures and dogs. Well, not dogs. Goblin dogs. They're not really dogs.
To go back to our earlier conversation, this is my kind of collectible. He is super common. He only costs $3.50. But I look at him and I am just like, I get a flood of memories and associations, and it's like, this isn't just a pig. This is Squealy Nord.
I mean, that's because Weeby Goblins was just such a brilliant thing in marketing, and the fact that they made it a good adventure, and also a great intro to the game, and a con favorite. This thing sells out every con every year. I mean, I was stuck as the Weeby Goblins one year guy for Paizo during the Gen Con, and I ran it like 6 times in a row, but I still loved it. I will run it again. I will run this adventure anytime you want me to run this adventure. Oh gosh, now I kind of want to run the adventure again right now.
I would love to run it right now.
And it was so well written. It sets up these great characters, and so that miniature isn't just another pig. It isn't even just another named miniature. I don't have such fond memories of my Dritz mini. I don't have such fond memories of my Valros. But that miniature is great because you have memories of how you met Squilly. I mean, that's a personalized memory that just so happens to be common mindshare among so many Pathfinder players.
Speaking of Valros, did you pick up the Iconic set?
Not yet, but I will.
Me neither. So hopefully I'll pick it up soon, and maybe we'll talk about that in a future episode.
Mm-hmm.
But speaking of future episodes, I think it's time to put this one to rest, Perram.
Yeah, time to wrap things up, guys.
We promised to answer your questions, guys. We've got... okay, we don't have a backlog of no questions yet, so hopefully we can get to them in the near future. But we'll be right back to wrap things up right after this. You good?
I am good.
All right. Thank you for joining us for episode 103 of No Direction, the Pathfinder News, Reviews, and Interviews podcast. Before we go, a couple of things that might be of interest to our listeners and Pathfinder enthusiasts. One, we've got a Kickstarter to report on, Pact Magic, with the fingerprints and the handprints and the palm prints of our own Alex Agunas all over this thing. I know Pact Magic is something that's a passion of his. This is from Radiance House. It's Pact Magic Unbound, Grimoire of Lost Souls, the latest in Radiance House's Pact Magic series. It's 100 pages of all new Pact Magic content. It's a follow-up to Pact Magic Unbound Volumes 1 and 2. And it is currently on Kickstarter. It is already funded. They are at $5,800 of a $2,500 ask. And so if you back this product, you know that you're getting it. You've got until March 28th to go. Check out the Kickstarter, which we'll be plugging on our Facebook page and in the show notes for this episode. But throw a couple of bucks at it for no other reason, if for no other reason, I should say, than to support our good buddy Alex Agunas. He does so much free content for our website. Anyone that has, you know what? How about this? For every iconic design of his that you liked, I recommend you back $1. I know that I think I had just committed to at least $50 for this Kickstarter because, man, the iconic designs are just fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love those articles. I love the fact that he's on board on our network, and and God grief, I love the fact that we can chat with him when we have need. Because he's got. I mean, Ryan, me and you are pretty good at Pathfinder.
Oh, thank you.
We know the game pretty good. We know where we can find what we don't know, and just the fact that we've worked on this podcast, we get a certain level of mastery of this game, and we know the common problems. He knows this game so much better than either of us.
He does.
Like, it's
his
crazy.
Ability to recall without reference.
I know, man. Like like some wild out there thing, you can ask him, hey, do you have any idea for this build? And he'll just rattle off like 5 different things from 5 different books, and it's the perfect answer. It's like,
and
oh, yeah.
Current on all the FAQs and the conversation, so he knows what the official word is, what the unofficial word is.
And knows what's Pathfinder Society legal and what isn't.
Yep. The man knows his stuff.
Yes. Great. Which means I look forward to the quality, because you can tell, especially when Pathfinder first came out. I'm sort of going on a tangent. You could tell the third-party stuff that wasn't really Pathfinder, or they don't, and you can still kind of tell the stuff where you don't really know this system and you're writing books. And I won't call out anybody, but I have called out people on this before on things we've officially reviewed. But you know, knowing the system and knowing Pathfinder and knowing that this is not just D&D with funny-faced goblins on it, and how you write for this system is important, and he has mastery.
Go ahead.
Shout out for some blog content, because I've been promising this for a while. We finally have an article on building the game tavern. If you were interested in how I put this thing together, or just some pictures of it now that it's built, we've got it up on the blog, if that's something you're interested in. So I know we've been promising it for a while, and I know all our video guys, you've seen it a lot. It's right there. But if you want to see a full blog post up about it with lots of pictures.
And finally, I just want to remind everyone, PaizoCon 2015 is May 22nd to 25th at the Doubletree by Hilton Hotel in the Seattle Airport. So if you're free that weekend, as I have made myself, hopefully you can make your way out to Seattle. Join us. We've officially submit the No Direction Live podcast, which I hope to do a live stream with Perram so that the two of us are present. And we're going to do rotating guests. We'll get into more detail if we officially get added to the schedule. We don't know that yet. I might be joining another panel. We will see. Again, once things start getting announced, I will let people know where they can find me, both in panels, what games I sign up for, and where I'm likely to hang out when I'm not doing either panels or games. I know actually one of our no questions that we skipped over was Sam Buffum was asking if we are going to PaizoCon this year, and we will be making video recording of the banquet like we did last year. The answer, Sam, is yes. we will 100% be filming the banquet.
Mm-hmm.
If we only release one video from PaizoCon, it will be the banquet, and
Right.
it will be as soon after PaizoCon as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, we'll also be able to record some of the seminars that I'll be attending. But unlike with the audio recorders, which I can just leave on a table and leave, and if somebody walks off with them, I'm at $100. I don't want to leave the camera. So the only seminars that I can record are the ones that I can actually attend. And I've got a fairly busy schedule at PaizoCon. So I will put an emphasis on any of the seminars that I feel will actually have a visual component, and that having a video of them will elevate the experience.
Mm-hmm.
And otherwise, any of them that I just happen to be at, and if the camera's free.
Right.
Oh, if you're going to PaizoCon and you want to be on the No Direction PaizoCon con team, let me know, because even though I just said that I'm willing to leave a $100 tape recorder or audio recorder on a table, I have just said that I'm leaving $100 tape recorders on the table. If I could just get people to keep an eye on them, especially people that are already planning on attending the seminars, please get in touch with me either by Facebook or nodirection@hotmail.com.
Yeah, and I know it's a little early for this, but I would also just like to ditto. We would like also the same volunteers who would be interested in Gen Con helping us out, because we need some hands. I'm probably not going to be able to solo everything again this year. I've never soloed. We've had lots of great helpers, and we've learned a lot of how to do this right. But for everybody that helps, it's a great help. And all we're really asking is that, hey, if you're going to attend the seminar anyway and you're a fan of the show, would you mind handling this recorder? And we walk you through how to do it. Honestly, the Paizo guys expect us at this point, so they know the game. We're going to just quietly leave the table. It's super easy, and then you take it off when you're done. It's awesome. So anybody that's willing to help with PaizoCon, for sure, get in touch with Ryan, because that's going to be coming up. And if you're going to Gen Con, also get in touch with us, because we could use some hands there too.
Alex Agunas' post is, he just posted in the comments, "I'll be rich."
Ah, yes. Also, Bard Wannabe has commented that the squealer must awaken. All right, guys. I think that about wraps us up.
Until next time, I'm Ryan Costello.
And I'm Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Perram.
And if you want to find the path, you need no direction.